Chapter 6. April. "You look happy. What's going on?" Lucia asked as April practically skipped into the kitchen and grabbed a LaCroix from the fridge. "Two things." April could barely keep the happiness from bubbling out. She popped the tab of the can and took a sip. "One, I had an amazing date with Carter. He's nothing like you said. He was attentive and friendly." Lucia sighed and shook her head. "I never said he wouldn't be attentive and friendly. I simply said he had a hard time staying with a woman for more than a few dates." April rolled her eyes. She knew Lucia was trying to look out for her, but she hadn't been on that date. There was no way Carter wouldn't want more dates with her. He'd already promised the walk they hadn't taken last night. "I'm not worried about that. I think we really connected." Lucia's eyes widened and her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, April, tell me you didn't. Not on the first date." "No, of course not." April had standards. They certainly weren't as strict as Lucia's, but she didn't jump into bed with men on the first date. At least, not anymore. She'd done that one time in college because all of her friends were doing it and talking about how liberating it was. And while it had been exciting at the time, it had left her feeling empty and disgusted with herself. From then on, she'd established her 3-date rule. That was generally enough time to know if she felt any chemistry for the guy, but not so long that she felt like she was wasting her time. It had served her well throughout the last few years, and she'd rarely been tempted to break it. Though she'd thought about it with Carter. He was so charming and handsome and famous. "I'm simply stating that we talked, and it felt deep." Though Lucia's sigh was soft this time, it did not escape April's attention. "For your sake, I hope so, but please be careful. Carter is a nice guy, but he's not a relationship guy." April flicked her hand, dismissing Lucia's concerns. "And I'm not a relationship girl, so it works." Although she could not deny that the thought of a relationship with Carter had crossed her mind. Or maybe not so much the relationship, but the perks of the relationship. Being on TV, getting into nice restaurants, maybe extravagant gifts. But even that trip through Fantasyland had been brief. There was nothing to worry about. She didn't want to be tied down right now because of her other big news. "But guess what the other thing is?" Lucia dropped her head onto one hand. "I'm a little afraid to ask. But what?" "My friend, who's a realtor, called, and she has a great place to show me tomorrow. I might get my own office space." April enjoyed her job at the chiropractor's office. The rent was lower and the location was great, but it wasn't her office. She wanted to be able to branch out, maybe hire another massage therapist or someone who did facials or something. Make it more like a spa and less like a doctor's office. "Won't that be a lot more money?" Lucia asked, her face folding in concern. "Yeah, initially, but once I get someone else in there, they should be able to help out with the rent. And when we can make it more spa-like, I'm sure we can get more high-end clients." April hadn't thought all the details through. She was more of a dreamer than a planner. "Which is great." Lucia's voice had taken on that placating tone that April abhorred. "But what if that doesn't happen for a while? How long could you afford the rent on the place by yourself?" April shrugged. She hadn't looked that closely at the finances yet. "I don't know, maybe a few months, but it won't take that long to find a partner." "Maybe not, but what if you get sick or injured?" "I'm not trying to dash your dream. although that's exactly what it felt like to April. But shouldn't you consider all of that before you jump into a big purchase like that? April fought to keep her smile on her face. While she liked Lucia, sometimes her limited thinking was too constricting. I'm in the prime of my life, Lucia. It's not like I'm going to suddenly get too sick to work. I'm sure you're right. It's just that accidents are never planned for, and I want to make sure you have a plan in case that happens. Oh, I will. April downed the last of her LaCroix, barely tasting it. Why did Lucia have to be such a buzzkill? Her joy had been sapped nearly as fast as she'd gotten it. I'm going to turn in, she said to Lucia as she dropped her can in the recycling bucket and headed to her room. The next day, April met up with her realtor Megan at the space in downtown Southlake. You ready to see the place? Megan asked as she unlocked the front door. April smiled. She was more than ready. Absolutely. Well, what do you think? Megan asked as April finished the tour of the retail space. It's beautiful, April said. In fact, it was everything she wanted. The office space had 3 rooms, which would allow for another massage therapist and an esthetician or some other combination. The waiting room was small but homey with a soft beige color accented with browns. And the receptionist desk was built in. The bathroom was small, but at least that meant it would be easier to clean. And there was no break room, but April could eat anywhere. She didn't need a designated table. Megan smiled and pulled a stack of papers from her bag. Are you ready to sign then? Was she? It would be a lot of money, and even though she didn't think Lucia was right, her roommate's words bounced around in her head, causing doubt to rear its ugly head. She chewed on her bottom lip. Do you think we'd be able to talk them down on the price at all? Just for some cushion, she added quickly when she noticed Megan's jaw tighten. I don't think they'll be willing to budge. It's a good price, April. What's the issue? The issue was her stupid roommate's words echoing in her brain. I just want to make sure I have all my bases covered. I mean, heaven forbid I get in an accident or can't find someone to rent the other 2 rooms. I just want to make sure I can cover the costs. A look of irritation flashed across Megan's face before she composed herself with a deep breath and a fake smile. I thought you had this all worked out already, April. I thought I did too, but a friend of mine brought these things up last night, and I really think I need to consider them. April closed her eyes and pinched the bridge of her nose. She could not believe the words coming out of her mouth. What if she lost this property forever? Then it wasn't God's plan for you. Lucia's voice said in her head, but April didn't believe in God. Did she? Look, I just need a few days to go over my finances. Can we revisit this next week? That should give me time to go over all the details. We can try, but I can't guarantee the property will still be available. Exasperation flooded the clipped tone of Megan's voice. I understand. If this one gets picked up, then I'll wait until the next one comes open. Somehow, April doubted Megan would want to show her any more properties after this fiasco, though. Megan blew out a frustrated breath and stuffed the papers back in her bag. Well, if you want to take a gamble on your future, then I guess that's your prerogative. Her condescending tone made April want to spit out an apology and sign the papers right then. But Lucia's voice would not let her. She hadn't put as much thought into the plan as she should have, and the least she could do was put out some feelers for people who might want to lease a room and go over her financial situation one more time. She didn't honestly think anything would happen to her, but a little prudence might not be such a bad thing.